Roses have a long and fascinating history in Denmark. They were first introduced by the Romans, and professional rose gardens can be traced back to the reign of King Christian IV in the early 17th century. Roses were also brought back by the vast merchant naval ships that Denmark had in the old days. Back in the Napoleon Wars, Denmark had the second largest navy in Europe, just behind England. And Denmark used to bring back a lot of plants to its gardens from across the world. Today, roses remain a central feature of Denmark's historic gardens, including Frederiksborg Castle and Rosenholm Castle. Even Valby Park boasts a spectacular rose garden with around 12,000 roses. Roses weren't the only cultural highlight. Denmark also has a rich tradition of amusement parks. In fact, the two oldest amusement parks in the world are both in Copenhagen. And they both inspired Walt Disney for his amusement parks. And he also liked The Little Mermaid and The Snow Queen and a lot of other fairy tales by the Danish author Hans Christian Andersen. Since 1878, Poulsen roses has been at the forefront of rose breeding in Denmark, growing from a small nursery into a world-leading rose company. Many Poulsen roses are named after famous Danes, mythological figures, or royalty. Remarkably, some cultivars introduced over 100 years ago are still grown today. The company remains family-owned, now spanning 5 generations. Poulsen played a pivotal role in the creation and development of Floribunda roses. It all began with Deans Poulsen, a visionary Danish breeder in 1907. He crossed a hybrid rose with a polyanther rose, creating the first hybrid polyanther, later known as a Poulsen rose. These early crosses paved the way for a new generation of garden roses. The true breakthrough came in 1923 when Poulsen introduced the varieties Elsa Poulsen and Kirsten Poulsen. These roses showcase the hallmarks we now associate with floribundas: prolific cluster flowering, robustness, and hardiness, perfect for the Scandinavian climate. At that time, the term floribunda didn't exist. It wasn't until 1930 when Dr. J. N. Nicholas in the United States coined the name to describe these beautiful cluster-flowering roses from Denmark. The word floribunda literally means plenty of flowers in Latin. The story of dwarf roses begins in France in the mid-1800s with Joseph Bonnaire. He was the first to intentionally create a true dwarf rose, compact in size, repeat flowering, and perfect for small gardens or containers. But the story doesn't end there. In the early 1900s, Danish breeders at Poulsen took Bonnaire's idea and refined it. They developed hardy, abundant dwarf roses, making them popular in Northern Europe and across Europe, laying the groundwork for the modern miniature and patio roses we know today. Poulsen didn't stop at roses. In 1994, the company expanded into clematis breeding, producing millions of plants annually alongside the roses. Today, Poulsen licenses over 30 million roses and 2 million clematis worldwide, sold in more than 60 countries. In fact, over 40% of all pot roses sold globally are Poulsen varieties. While the first dwarf rose was born in France, it was Denmark that took it and made it popular across the world. So Poulsen roses and Denmark is very tied into discovering and making the floribunda and also the production of dwarf roses. Among Poulsen's most famous roses is the hybrid tea rose, Ingrid Bergman, introduced into the Hall of Fame by the World Federation of Rose Societies in 2000. Other celebrated varieties include Mom in a Million, China Girl, and many more. Every year, Poulsen aims to produce around 30 new rose and clematis varieties. And there's a lot of excellent breeding work going into the programs. They have, in general, the Renaissance series, which is the Fragrant collection, and then they have the Castle series, and they have a lot of different series, and the Patio series that focuses on terrace plants and a lot of other things. So you can always find what you want, but if you're going for fragrance, the Renaissance collection series is really what you want to look at. And I've had a lot of good experience growing the Renaissance collection series. There are well over 30 varieties in the Renaissance collection series, and you can find a lot of different scents in it. My favorites for now are Mom in a Million and another one called Princess Alexandra Renaissance. But there's a lot of really fragrant roses in the collection. And also one I really want to try this year called Mina Renaissance that has been winning a lot of prizes this year. So yeah, that was it about the rose in Denmark. I could go into a lot more details, but Poulsen roses has a rich history, and they were the inventors of the Floribunda rose, and they were the main factors behind the dwarf rose, that we have so many dwarf roses in supermarkets today. And that is really what you want to remember about Poulsen roses. Take care out there, guys.